Hello and welcome back to A Real Horror Show, the YouTube channel dedicated to all things horror. Today I'm bringing you a video that I've been excited to make for quite a while now. As a horror enthusiast, I've spent many years building up this huge collection of figures, statues, autographs, artwork, you name it, it's probably going to be in this room. And today I'll be taking you on a tour of my personal horror haven. I'll be showcasing some of my favourite items in this collection and sharing some stories about the history of those items and all that good stuff. So with that said, get ready for an in-depth journey into the collection of my dreams, or should I say nightmares. Let's get to it. Okay guys, we might as well start here at the very beginning. So a question I get a lot is, how does the overall collection room actually look? So without further ado, welcome to my nightmare. So, I guess we'll start with the entrance to the horror room, where yes, we are greeted by the legendary David Bowie, but also by this guy up here. Now, of course, this is none other than Jack Nicholson as Jack Torrance from The Shining. This absolutely incredible piece was made by Tom at The Evil Shed. If you've been keeping up with my channel and watching my recent uploads, you'd already know that because I recently did a full video review of this guy right here. I'll put a link to it in the description below and stuff, but you can find it on my channel. This piece is just mind-blowing. Like I said, I dedicated a whole video to it and I couldn't think of anything better to greet the entrance to the horror room than this. Now, in the first corner of the entrance, we have a few signed autograph pieces. I guess we'll start at the very bottom here with this beautiful Reanimator print by the great artist Graham Humphreys, and this is signed by Jeffrey Combs and Barbara Crampton, and of course Graham as well. Just above that we have the first autograph piece I ever got in my collection, which is from Robert Englund, aka Freddy Krueger, and this was from the very first convention that I ever went to, so it's quite special to me. Yeah, I love it. Next up is another autograph with quite a nice story behind it. Hello, by the way. So after George A. Romero sadly passed away, Malcolm McDowell did some kind of fundraiser for him, which I gladly donated to, and a few weeks later this autograph appeared in the mail from Malcolm. Speaking of Malcolm McDowell, we also have another Clockwork Orange piece just above that. Now, I really love this because I think it's framed beautifully. Of course, that's Alex from the movie and Malcolm's full signature. Moving on to the second corner, we're greeted by something, I guess, a little bit different. Maybe this isn't expected in a horror collection, but we have a cardboard cutout of Wicket the Ewok from Return of the Jedi, signed by the actor Warwick Davis, a lovely chap who, as many of you will know, also played Leprechaun in those films. Now, just behind the Ewok, we have a little vinyl case, and I do have a few special edition horror vinyls in there, amongst other things. I may do a video on them in the future, but for now, I'll just put some photos on the screen of a few of the different vinyls that I have in this collection. And above that, we have, well, we're starting with some action figures. Firstly, we have a McFarlane Jareth from Labyrinth. Again, not exactly horror, but as I always say, I collect things that I love, not just horror films. I'm a big cinema fan, and of course, a big fan of Mr. David Bowie. Now, just above David Bowie, we have this NECA Beetlejuice figure from, I believe, 2006. It's part of the NECA Cult Classics line. It is the red tuxedo version. I really love this figure. Beetlejuice, one of my favourite Tim Burton movies, such a classic and a classic figure. Now above that we have the iconic Cassandra Peterson, aka Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, and this figure is signed. She has probably one of my favourite signatures because it's just a beautiful signature, and she did it in this blue pen that just looks so good. Really happy with this one. And just above that we have another classic NECA figure from the first series of Hellraiser figures they put out. This is of course Pinhead, as played by Doug Bradley. It is also signed by Doug Bradley right there. I actually think I got both of these figures signed at the same time. Oh no, it was different years but at the same convention, HorrorCon UK. Now on this side of the wall we have some NECA Toys Friday the 13th Jason Voorhees figures from Friday the 13th Part 3 and 4. These are about 10 years old now. I think this was like Series 1 and 2. I don't have the normal version of the Part 4, just the Battle Damage one. Again, great figures, and I think they're pretty rare now. Now this is a classic figure. This is a Mezco Cinema of Fear Nancy figure from A Nightmare on Elm Street, of course played by Heather Langenkamp, who has also signed the figure at Texas Frightmare. Now this is a classic figure. I just love the whole diorama of that iconic moment where Freddy's glove reaches out of the bathtub. Such a great scene. Now, something that people say to me quite often is how much they love how my room is laid out. I have to say that so much thought went into it. Before I even bought some figures, I was planning out where I want them to go and how I want the room to be laid out. All these figures are nailed in. I don't use temporary hooks. I actually use nails to put all these guys in so they're secured. So it takes a lot of planning, but it all works out in the end. As you'll notice during the video, there's a theme of NECA 8-inch retro cloth figures that line the entire ceiling pretty much all the way around until that point, and it was something I planned many years ago when I started to decide how I wanted the room to be laid out. So starting over here we have a 2014 NECA Ghostface figure from Scream 4. This one's become really rare now. Luckily, if you're after a NECA clothed Ghostface figure, they've recently remade this guy, and I think that's readily available from most nerdy shops that sell NECA. And by the way, I'm extremely excited for Scream 6, which I believe comes out next week. I can't wait to see that and of course do a review for you guys. Coming up next is my Nightmare on Elm Street collection of NECA retro cloth figures. Probably my favourite line from NECA, in terms of the retro cloth that is. This is of course New Nightmare Freddy, right next to the original Nightmare on Elm Street figure. Now I believe this is the very first retro cloth figure that NECA ever came out with, along with a Part 3 Jason and I actually think a Rocky Balboa action figure. Next to him of course is Part 2 Freddy's Revenge, which is my favourite Freddy look. The makeup was done by Kevin Yeager, who did the special effects for Child's Play, so the man who basically brought Chucky to life. Next to him we have Freddy from Part 3, arguably the best entry into the Nightmare series, besides of course the original. And again, another Dream Warriors figure, one that I absolutely love, as it's Freddy in his tuxedo outfit. Now I love that NECA have been doing this with the Freddy figures, including of course from the Dream Master in his doctor uniform. It also comes with a pair of sunglasses. We have Chef Freddy 2 from The Dream Child. Not the best entry into the series, but again, another iconic scene and an iconic look for Freddy Krueger. Now moving on here, we have a Comic-Con exclusive, which is of course Super Freddy, again from The Dream Child. Now I will say, if you guys want me to do a more in-depth look into these action figures, I certainly will. I could talk about these guys for hours. Last but certainly not least, we have the NECA NES Freddy Krueger figure. Again, I love that they actually turned that into an action figure, along with Jason Voorhees in his iconic purple outfit and baby blue mask. Of course, this now starts the Friday the 13th section of my retro cloth figures, bringing us on to arguably the best retro cloth figure that NECA has ever released, which is this San Diego Comic-Con exclusive Pamela Voorhees and Jason as a child. Absolutely stunning set of figures. One of the best products that NECA have probably ever released, in my opinion. This is also signed by Ori Lehman, who played Jason in part 1, and also signed by Tom Savini, who of course did the makeup effects for the film, as well as many other classic movies. Moving on from that, we have Jason from part 3, again one of the first NECA retro cloth figures that ever got released. And now we have Jason from Friday the 13th part 2. Love this figure, absolutely brilliant. Moving on from that, we have Roy from Friday the 13th part 5, A New Beginning. And on the very end there, I can't quite get around because Michael is blocking the way, but we have a part 6 Jason Lives figure. Now this one again is one of my favourite NECA retro cloth figures, maybe one of my favourite NECA figures of all time. It's an absolutely stunning figure, so much detail and love went into this guy. And of course that's also signed by CJ Graham right there, the actor who played Jason in that installment. Now before we head on to this side of the room, the iconic part of my horror collection, I still have a few things to show you on this first wall. We'll start over here with some art prints that I have no room for. That is the classic problem of, well, any collector, as a lot of people watching this will probably be able to identify with. You run out of space pretty quick, and unfortunately there's no room for these, but we have some great prints here. I mean, this first one obviously has nothing to do with horror, but it is one of my favorite video games of all time, Super Mario 64, signed none other by Charles Martinet, who has been the voice of Mario since he had a voice. So I really love this poster. It means a lot to me personally. Now behind that we have this stunning Halloween 2018 print by Stephen LaRosse Holiday. All these people that I mentioned, by the way, I will be putting down below in the description. Please check out these artists and these companies, and yeah, just go and support them, check out the work. This is absolutely stunning. Now behind that, we have an original Halloween 1978 poster. By original, of course, I mean the film. This isn't from 1978, but it is a really nice print from Bottleneck Gallery. The knife is actually made of a foil material, so it does kind of shine and have that metallic look to it, which I absolutely love. Now this is special because it's signed by Nancy Loomis, who of course played Annie in the film, and Charles Cyphers, who played Sheriff Brackett. As well as in the corner here, we have a little autograph by a man called Bob Gleason, and he actually designed this extremely iconic poster. I'm very happy to have his autograph, and I will be adding more when I get the chance. Now behind that Halloween print, we have this incredible Nightmare on Elm Street art print by the amazing artist Ghoulish Gary. Now this art print was actually released at Texas Frightmare Weekend 2019. I was lucky enough to attend a showing of the original film with the cast in attendance, who were also obviously at the convention, and that's where this print was released. Now it's signed none other than Ronnie Blakely, the actress who played Nancy's mother in the film, as well as Nancy herself, Heather Langenkamp, Amanda Wyss, who played Tina, the iconic first kill of Freddy Krueger, and the man of our dreams himself, Robert Englund. Again, this is one of my favorite pieces, and I'm so annoyed that I cannot put this on the wall, at least not yet. And also, I'm annoyed I can't meet Johnny Depp. Now between these doorways, we have a couple of rare and exclusive NECA action figures. Some of them are from Scream Factory that came with all special edition releases of films, starting with this figure of Detective Ray Cameron from Night of the Creeps, as played by the legendary Tom Atkins. Now if you're a big fan of 80s horror and you haven't seen Night of the Creeps, please go check it out. You will not be disappointed with this one. I had the honour of meeting Tom Atkins himself at For Love of Horror a couple of years ago, where he signed this figure for me. Now underneath Mr. Tom Atkins, we have a recent favourite of mine. We have Quint from Jaws, as played, of course, by Robert Shaw. An absolutely phenomenal figure. This came out fairly recently, well, I think about a year ago now, but I absolutely love this figure. The likeness is just perfect. The accessories are amazing. Again, I want to do a video talking about a lot of these retro cloth figures, because NECA, honestly, in the past couple of years, have just upped their game so much. When it comes to detail, paint and sculpts, absolutely phenomenal. And that is shown nowhere better than in these incredible They Live action figures. I mean, just look at this head sculpt on John Narder. That is absolutely insane. It looks just like Roddy Piper. This is such high quality, you know, for these action figures. And as a big John Carpenter fan, it's also so great to get some They Live figures. I've got a couple more to show you later on from They Live. This is, of course, Frank from the film. And this is, again, another Scream Factory exclusive. Such a great action figure from such a great movie. So I do have a couple more of these NECA boxed retro cloth figures on this wall, but they are currently obscured by my piano, which takes up a reasonable amount of space in my collection room. But this is what I do for a job. I am a gigging musician, so I do need to use this, unfortunately. But anyway, you're not here to hear about that. So anyway, here are the other two boxed NECA retro cloth figures. First we have another Scream Factory exclusive of the Miner, or Harry Warden, from My Bloody Valentine. Fantastic slasher film from 1981. Highly recommend this film. Again, another gorgeous figure from NECA, as usual. And also we have this absolutely insane Tim Curry Pennywise action figure. I have to say that this might be one of my all-time favourite NECA Toys figures. I mean, just look at this sculpt, and the tailoring alone on this costume just sells it. They did such an incredible job of this Pennywise figure. It has to be one of my favourites. Now, this next piece is without a doubt the largest collectible in my entire horror collection. Probably the largest collectible I will ever own. And it is, of course, the Prime 1 Studios Evil Dead 2 Ash Williams. Now, I recently uploaded a video to the channel of my top 5 Evil Dead collectibles in my collection. I highly recommend you go check that video out, as it shows quite a few cool things that I do elaborate on. One of them, of course, is this guy. However, I am thinking of giving Ash his own review video where I talk about it in depth very soon. I think I will be doing that. I mean, this is such a phenomenal statue. It's a behemoth. It has such a presence in the collection room. And I'm not kidding when I say he is ginormous. I mean, this is my hand just on the base. I have so much to talk about with this guy. Of course, we've got Henrietta down there in the fruit cellar. We've also got Ash's possessed hand, the Kandarian dagger. Obviously, we have Ash himself, as played by, of course, Bruce Campbell. And that iconic laughing deer head as well, which this is one of my favourite aspects of the statue. I just think the whole diorama is just absolutely stunning. And speaking of the Evil Dead, of course I have my Evil Dead trilogy art prints by the insanely talented artist Graham Humphreys. Again, I talked about these in great detail in my Evil Dead collectibles video, so please go and check that out. As I've said before, my horror collection room would not look the same without these. They're just such a standout feature of the room, and probably the thing that people ask about the most. These are also one of my favourite items in my collection, as all the prints are signed by both Bruce Campbell and Sam Raimi. As a huge Evil Dead fan, I can't begin to tell you how happy these prints make me. Now, I think it's time we talk about the most standout part of my collection, which of course is this corner right here. And I guess we'll start with this extremely iconic piece, which is a Nag Masks Halloween 1 75k Castle Edition mask. And this is a replica, obviously, of the original mask from the first Halloween film. Now, this is made, as I said, by Nick at Nag Masks, and he makes the most accurate, stunning replicas of the original Michael Myers mask. I could not recommend him and his amazing work enough. I mean, this piece alone is one of my favourites in my collection, but what makes it a true holy grail is the fact that on this side it's signed by none other than John Carpenter, who I had the greatest fortune of meeting, as well as the original shape, Nick Castle, on the other side. A true holy grail. Now, I did talk about this guy in depth in another video on my channel, which is the top 5 Halloween collectibles in my collection. Again, I recommend you go to the channel and check that out. Moving on from Michael, we have this cute little ghost, this phantom from the York Ghost Merchants, as well as this little statue here of Pazuzu from The Exorcist. Now, I don't remember which company actually made this Pazuzu, however you can find him on the internet. He's relatively cheap. It's such a great nod to such a classic movie. Now, as we open the detailed cabinet, we have a few 1/6 scale figures, starting with this Ash Williams by Sideshow Collectibles. This was actually the first 6 scale figure that I ever bought back in 2018 or 17, I think this was released. I got the exclusive version that came with the Henrietta head, which is such a great accessory to have with this figure. Absolutely love this guy. Obviously, everyone knows that I'm crazy for the Evil Dead, so naturally, I love this guy. Just behind him, we have the 1974 Leatherface by the company 30. They did an excellent job of Leatherface. A really, really great figure. Next to him, we have another Sideshow Collectibles figure. This time it is, of course, the man behind the mask, Jason Voorhees. And at his feet, we have a NECA Toys Chucky. It is a retro cloth figure. The retro cloth Chucky is around 1/6 scale, so I had to pick up an extra guy of him to display with the 1/6 gang. Now underneath that we have a Stanley Kubrick shelf, one of my favourite directors, as cheesy as it is to say, of course. Here we have this Alex DeLarge figure by the company Medicom. Again, one of my favourite 1/6 scale figures. I never expected to actually get an Alex DeLarge figure in 1/6 scale form, and when Medicom announced this, I just knew I had to grab this guy. Another great feature of this figure is that you can also move his eyes, which I absolutely love. Next to him, of course, we have, again, another shining collectible in the collection, this Jack Torrance by Craft One. This has become quite a rare figure now, but I've got to say this is probably my favourite 1/6 scale figure that I have in this collection. I mean, I absolutely love this head sculpt. In fact, I just love the whole figure. Absolutely fantastic. And behind them we have a bowler hat that is signed by Malcolm McDowell himself. Again, another one of my grail items. I never thought I'd have the opportunity to meet Malcolm McDowell, but I did last year at HorrorCon UK, and it was an incredible experience, and I'm so proud to have that in my collection. Just under there we have, again, 2 more grail items. I know I say grail items quite a lot, but I really do mean it. Some of these items in my collection I'm so proud of having. Not only do they mean a lot to me, but they're extremely rare. Starting with, of course, this Freddy Krueger glove replica, signed by Freddy himself, Robert Englund. This is a NECA Toys glove, but it is brilliant quality. And next to that we have this Vital Toys Rocky Horror Picture Show Frankenfurter figure, signed by one of my heroes, Mr. Tim Curry, who I have had the fortune of meeting twice. Like I said, he's one of my heroes, and again, to have that in the collection, you know, it really does mean a lot to me. And on the final shelf, we have a small Child's Play collection. I guess we'll start with this piece right here, which is a movie prop, actually. It's a strand of the good guy doll hair as used in one of the factory scenes of Child's Play 2. A really awesome little piece that I'm very happy to have in my collection. Now, just above that, we have this replica Chucky head, burnt Chucky head I should say, from Child's Play 1. This is made by Tenok Art. Absolutely love this piece. Next to him we have a Sideshow Collectibles 15-inch Chucky figure. I got this guy years ago. I can't even remember what year this came out, although I'm pretty sure it was something like, it must have been 2009, maybe earlier than that actually. But just behind him we actually have an extremely important piece to me. And the reason for that is because this is the first horror collectible I ever owned. This was bought by my dad as a gift to me back in 2008 when it first came out. It's a 12-inch talking Chucky from Child's Play 3. My obsession with horror started pretty much because I had an obsession with Chucky and Child's Play, and that is still the first horror collectible I ever owned. Now, speaking of Chucky, we've got the little man himself right here. Of course, this is a replica good guy by Trick or Treat Studios. I never thought in my wildest dreams when I was a kid that one day I would actually own a good guy replica. So it meant so much to me to finally get one at an affordable price, thanks to Trick or Treat Studios. It's just a fantastic little replica. This is one of the rarest items in my collection because, as you can see just in there, he's got a little signature on the neck, and it's signed by none other than Brad Dourif himself. Of course, the iconic voice of Chucky. What a dream it was to meet Brad Dourif and not only have a chat with him, but have my good guy signed. When I mention these convention experiences and other things, I'll try and stick photos on the video so you can take a look. Now, guarding the corner of my room is this absolutely insane Norris head replica from The Thing. Now, I did do a video about this a little while ago. You can find it on the channel where I review and talk about him and unbox him actually. And just what a phenomenal piece. I could not be more proud to have this in the collection. I absolutely love prop replicas. I just think this is just one of the best prop replicas I could have ever imagined owning. The Thing is without a doubt probably one of the best horror films ever made, one of John Carpenter's best films, and this is such an iconic creature from that movie. He looks absolutely gnarly, but I absolutely love him. And he's standing above actually this absolutely beautiful Ghostbusters rug that was made by my girlfriend's very talented sister. So shout out to Barbie. Thank you for making this for me. You did an absolutely incredible job. It's just completely changed the collection room. It's just brightened it up so much, and yeah, fantastic stuff. Now just behind Norris, who takes up quite a generous amount of space I might add, we've got this NECA Toys Ash vs Evil Dead Evil Ash puppet replica, Ashy Slashy I should say, and behind him we have this gorgeous Scream art print. This Scream art print was done by a very talented artist called Melvin Mago. Of course, I will put his links in the description below. An extremely talented artist, and I just love how he's composed this artwork. It's just absolutely phenomenal. And we do have some autographs on there. We have Matthew Lillard, who played Stu, Skeet Ulrich, who played Billy, David Arquette, of course, Officer Dewey, and he's such a lovely guy to meet, David Arquette, such a lovely guy. And finally, we have in red, which was a beautiful touch, we have Roger L. Jackson. He decided to do it in red, and I could not be happier with how that turned out. Of course, he is the voice of Ghostface. Now, just above the Scream print, we have this absolutely insane Graham Humphreys piece, and this is Halloween. Now, this is probably one of, if not the best artwork in my collection. It's definitely up there. Might be one of my favourite horror artworks of all time. Just the way Graham composes his artworks and just the colours he uses and everything. It's just absolutely incredible. These art prints are long sold out, and Graham actually sold me one of his personal copies, and for that I could not be more thankful. So thank you, Graham. Now, just before we move on to the back wall and the bookshelf, I do want to show you these two figures. They're currently in storage because, again, I've got no space for them, but I do love them. They're extremely classic figures. They actually came out the year I was born, and these are the movie Maniac, Freddy Krueger and Michael Myers figures. Absolute classics, and both of them are signed by, of course, Robert Englund and Nick Castle, the original Michael Myers. Now, if you're still watching at this point and you've kept up with me throughout this video, I want to say a big thank you. All the support on my channel is more than appreciated. Thank you guys so much for checking out the content and all the interaction and asking to see these videos. It means a lot to me. So thank you for sticking with me as we get into the real meat of the collection now. As I've mentioned before, if there's anything in this collection that you guys want me to talk about in particular, I'll happily make a full video on it. I could talk about this collection for days and days and days, so I'll try and get through it all quickly without talking too much. So we might as well start on the bookshelf. Starting over here, we have this. I actually don't know what this is. What the hell? Okay, I got extremely confused there before I remembered that this is by Mezco. I'm trying to remember which company made this figure, but of course it is a 12-inch Pinhead figure from Hellraiser 3. Next up we have NECA's box set, Halloween 2 box set of Dr. Loomis and Michael Myers. One of the best NECA box sets ever released. Next up we have MacReady from The Thing. We have another Jareth, another David Bowie figure from Labyrinth. Under him we have the Kessler Wolf from American Werewolf in London. I should say now, by the way, that I have all these NECA Ultimate figures laid out, kind of like books. Obviously it's easier for space and I really like how it looks. If there's any of these figures that you want me to talk about, spend a video on, I'll happily do it. I have a big collection of these NECA Ultimates, and I probably will be showcasing a lot of these more in depth in a future video. Moving on, we have Ash from Evil Dead 1. This came out very recently for the anniversary of the film. I'm so happy that we finally got a figure from the original Evil Dead film, as it's usually Army of Darkness or Evil Dead 2. So again, Ash, as he appeared in the original film, is so great. Next to him, we have two retro cloth figures again. This time we have Hooper from Jaws. another beautiful figure. Just like the Quint one, amazing head sculpt and attention to detail, fantastic. And Michael Myers from Halloween 2018. Next to them we have this really cool Freddy Krueger car. Well, it's actually the car at the end of the original Nightmare on Elm Street. I'm sorry, but Norris, you're just getting in the way. I mean, again, these legs, he just takes up so much space. Anyway, this is the car from the end of A Nightmare on Elm Street. It even comes with a little Freddy figure. It's just something a little bit unique that I really like. Sitting on top of that, we actually have this card from robertenglund.com that I got when he autographed my Freddy Krueger glove for me. Coming up to the next shelf, we have the full collection of NECA Ultimate Friday the 13th action figures. I have every Jason figure they've released to date from each of the films, at least the films that they have made Jason figures for so far. The last one in particular, this Freddy vs. Jason figure, is signed by Ken Kersinger, the actor who played Jason in that movie. Next to him we have, again, an Ultimate Pennywise from It, the Tim Curry version, and a wonderful Halloween 3 box set. This includes the Masked Kids figures from Halloween 3, Pumpkin the Skull, the Witch, and it comes with some great accessories. Halloween 3, again, kind of the dark horse of the franchise, but it's gained so much love. It's such a great film, and this set that NECA released is such a lovely set. I couldn't recommend picking this up enough if you get the chance. Coming to the third shelf on the bookcase, we have this display of Evil Dead 2 cabin artifacts. Again, I talked about these in great depth in my top 5 Evil Dead collectibles in my collection. I really recommend you check that video out to learn more about the story behind these. Next to that we have a 1989 replica Batarang. This is by NECA Toys. I'm just going to say it now, Batman 89 is without a doubt one of my favourite films of all time. I could not skip on picking this up when NECA announced it.
Where does he get those wonderful toys?
Just behind that, again, we have another odd thing in the collection. Well, at least when compared to horror memorabilia. It is a Super Mario hat replica signed by the voice actor Charles Martinet. A piece that I treasure greatly. And here we have a really early collectible for me, one that picked up in probably 2008, and it's this Chucky bobblehead by NECA Toys. These things are made of like pottery. Unfortunately, the end of the knife did snap years and years ago, probably when I first got it, but I still own it and it still has some meaning for me, and yeah, I love him. Next to that we have the Beatles. I'm laughing because I just think of the difference between Chucky and the Beatles, but this collection is for me. It's all the stuff that I love in my life, and this is the Lego set of the Beatles Yellow Submarine. I'm a big Lego fan, by the way. Just behind that we have this Hannibal Lecter mask that is a replica of the original from Silence of the Lambs, made by Fiberglass Masks. I plan on doing a video soon on prop replicas in my collection, and I will showcase that and talk about it in a greater detail. It is a fantastic replica and it definitely deserves a better display. Now this next shelf again features quite a lot of Evil Dead related items. The most obvious one being the chainsaw hand replica, one that again I talked a lot about in a previous video on the Evil Dead collectibles, and it is signed by the king himself, Bruce Campbell. Just behind that we have a Necronomicon replica from the original Evil Dead. This is actually from a DVD release of the film that came out quite a lot of years ago. I do actually have it up here in its box. It's a great little release, that. And just in front of that we have some tickets. These are extremely special because these tickets are actually from the premiere of the first Evil Dead film back when it was called Book of the Dead. I got these tickets from the producer, Scott Spiegel, and one of them is again signed by Bruce Campbell. Here is a framed photo of me from when I attended Texas Frightmare Weekend, dressed as Ash with Ted Raimi, Bruce Campbell and Sam Raimi. As I've mentioned before, this is probably one of the greatest moments, probably of my life actually. Meeting these three guys as Ash and just getting this photo with these people who have made such a big impact on my life. I can't begin to tell you how much I love this photo and how much this memory means. Now moving on up, we have all my physical media. I've got quite a few box sets of films that I love. I mean, some of these special edition box sets are absolutely incredible, especially the Friday the 13th one that features artwork by Devin Whitehead. Beautiful artwork. Some absolutely amazing releases, to be honest. I wish I had a bigger physical media collection, but I just can't afford it right now and I don't have the space. But it is something that I still add to. But besides the physical media, we have this NECA Toys box set back from the NECA Cult Classic days. This is an iconic NECA box set. It's the Freddy vs. Jason box set, and it took me absolutely years to get hold of this. It's so rare now, and it tends to be very expensive. Luckily, I did get my hands on it only about a year ago, so I'm very happy to finally have that in the collection. Above that is probably one of the rarest NECA collectibles that I have, and it's this Exorcist box set featuring a small diorama of Reagan in the bed, and when you press a button it does play the theme and a head spins around. It's pretty brilliant. But yeah, this has become a holy grail for a lot of horror figure collectors, and again, I'm proud to have it. It's a bit of an injustice that I've got Home Alone sat on top of it, but that's how it goes. Finishing off with the bookshelf, on top we have this Lego set of the iconic car, the Ecto-1 from Ghostbusters. Again, I love Lego, and Ghostbusters is one of my favourite movies, so it's no surprise that I buckled and ended up getting hold of this thing. It was a great build and just a lovely piece. Next to that we have this little Playmobil Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
Well, there's something you don't see every day.
I actually got this about 2 weeks ago when I was visiting my girlfriend in Mexico. This is what I brought back from my Mexico trip, and I couldn't be happier about it. It makes for a lovely little display. I also forgot to show you guys this. This is actually a card game that was made by my girlfriend based on true crime and stuff. It's a pretty odd little thing, but she did all the artwork on every card. She's such a talented little thing. Now, before we get to this last shelf in the collection room, I should show you the remainder of this wall, starting with these NECA Toys Evil Dead 2 25th anniversary figures. I still thoroughly believe that the Hero Ash figure from this line is probably the best Evil Dead action figure that's ever been made. The Hero from the Sky figure is signed again by Bruce Campbell. Just above those action figures we have, like I showed you before, they line the room, and it is more NECA Toys retro cloth figures. So we've got Ash from Evil Dead 2, Deadeye and Hero Ash. Then we have some Texas Chainsaw Massacre figures, the original Leatherface, the Pretty Woman Leatherface, excuse the Ecto-1, but behind there we do have Leatherface from Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 and Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. The order of them are swapped around because to go next to Leatherface we have this figure of Chop Top from Texas Chainsaw 2, and it is signed by Bill Moseley. Next to him we have this Herbert West figure from Reanimator, a figure that again I absolutely love this release, and it's signed by Jeffrey Combs. Coming to the end of the NECA retro figure line, we have this Captain Spaulding figure, probably one of the best ones that NECA have produced. It's a fantastic figure. The tailoring on it again, just stunning. And next to Captain Spaulding we have this retro cloth Chucky figure, and this one is signed by Alex Vincent, who has always played Andy in the franchise, and Christina Elise, who plays Kyle in Child's Play 2. And last but not least we have Candyman over there in the corner, a more recent release. I say recent, it actually came out probably 4 years ago now, but hopefully I will have that signed by Tony Todd one day. Another gorgeous figure from NECA Toys. As we make our way to the last shelf in my collection room, we have this Texas Chainsaw Massacre Hitchhiker and Nubbins collector set by NECA Toys. This features 2 retro cloth figures and is quite special as it's signed by Ed Neal, who played the Hitchhiker in the original movie. Another fantastic set from NECA Toys, as always. And underneath them we have another very special action figure, and this is Sideshow Collectibles Army of Darkness S-Smart Ash, an exclusive that was released all the way back in 2002. Absolutely love this guy. Unfortunately, he didn't quite make the cut on my top 5 Evil Dead collectibles in that video. It is a figure that I love nonetheless, and I wish we would see an updated version of this figure, but this one is without a doubt a classic. Next on the shelf we have more NECA Ultimate box set action figures. We have Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Michael Myers from Halloween 2 and Halloween 2018, as well as a figure of Laurie Strode from Halloween 2018. Next to them we have an absolutely classic box set. This, for a lot of people, is another holy grail of horror action figures, and it is the NECA Toys Night He Came Home box set. This was released in 2004. Extremely iconic piece of Halloween and horror memorabilia. This one is extremely special to me as it is signed by none other than John Carpenter himself from when I met him. I absolutely love that he signed it with Happy Halloween. Next to that we have more NECA Ultimate figures. We have Ultimate Chucky from Bride of Chucky, the Ultimate Good Guys figure. Well, I should say Ultimate Chucky. It comes with plenty of alternate heads and accessories. A 2017 Pennywise figure. Underneath that we have Pinhead from Hellraiser, and then the Nightmare on Elm Street Ultimate Collection, Freddy Krueger from Part 3, Part 2, Part 1, and the NES version of Freddy. Now again, this figure is signed on the inside by Robert Englund, this Part 1 figure. This was the first action figure I ever got signed, as I got it signed again at that first convention I went to when I met Robert for the first time. Next to those figures we have more NECA Evil Dead goodness. An Ash vs Evil Dead Ultimate Ash from Evil Dead 2, as well as the 30th anniversary Evil Dead 2 box set. Now this might be my favourite NECA box set of all time. Well, I mean besides this classic. But out of the modern box sets, this is probably my favourite, as it includes Hero Ash and an Evil Ed figure. And it's such a stunning set, it's fantastic. Next to those we have, on top of Bruce Campbell's fantastic autobiography, the NECA Series 1 set of Ash vs Evil Dead figures. Moving on from the shelf, we have this Halloween 1978 poster. Now this is definitely one of my holy grail items because it has, well, a pretty good chunk of the original cast on here. The master of horror himself, John Carpenter, Charles Cyphers, who played Sheriff Brackett, PJ Souls, who played Linda, Sandy Johnson, Judith Myers, Nick Castle, the original Michael Myers, Nancy Loomis, who played Annie, and we have this very special autograph, James Winburn, who was the stuntman who fell off the balcony at the end of the original Halloween. Unfortunately, Jim passed away last year, not long after I met him actually at the Fall of Horror convention. He was such a lovely man. He was very warm and kind, and it's such a sad loss. I'm very proud to have him on my poster, and meeting him is a great memory I won't forget. This is definitely one of my favourite pieces in my collection. Just above that we have another Graham Humphreys art piece, an A3 size Nightmare on Elm Street poster, and this is signed by Amanda Wyss, Heather Langenkamp, as well as Jesus Garcia, also credited as Nick Corey, who played Rod Lane in the original movie. Now just above that we have another extremely rare piece in my collection, and one that I extremely love. I got this again at Texas Frightmare convention, and it is a Distinctive Dummies Tim Curry Pennywise figure. Of course, this is the acid face variant. It's a beautiful little figure, and I think it's limited to only 60. I actually believe this is number 20 out of 60. I'll just check that. Yes, it is. But that's a piece that I really love. Now just above that, we have arguably the rarest, most sought after horror figures in history.
That belongs in a museum!
And it's these two NECA Toys Cult Classics Halloween figures. On the left we have the Ghost Michael Myers figure, and on the right we have the Evolution of Evil. I cannot begin to tell you how excited I was to finally get a hold of these guys and have them in my collection. Like I said, they're probably the most sought after horror figures ever, and extremely rare and valuable, and I'm very proud to have them. I talk about these guys more in my top 5 Halloween collectibles video, so please go check that out. Next then we have a Cult Classics Reagan figure from The Exorcist. Unfortunately the autograph is quite faded, as the pen that was used wasn't very good, which is a bit annoying, but it is signed by Eileen Dietz, who played Pazuzu in the film. Next up we have Cult Classics. I should say that all these are NECA Cult Classics, by the way, but this is Eric Draven from The Crow, another wonderful figure. Freddy Krueger from Wes Craven's New Nightmare, and I've got to say I just love how many accessories NECA used to put into these figures. I guess these were the equivalents of the Ultimate figures back in the day, but they did put a lot of accessories and effort into these figures, which I love. Next to him we have the Cult Classics Chucky figure. Somehow he's turned blonde. I don't quite know what's happened there. I guess it's just age. Speaking of age, we have this House of a Thousand Corpses Captain Spaulding figure that has badly yellowed, very sadly. I do take a great pride in my collection of my figures, and I look after them the best I can. Unfortunately, I did buy this figure second hand, and as I bought it, there was already a bit of yellowing there from the previous owner. And sometimes once it starts, you can't stop it. That was beyond my control. This figure does come with a great story, however. When I had the honour of meeting the great Sid Haig, he did sign this figure and he wrote you on it, which is the most Captain Spaulding thing I could imagine him doing. We had a great laugh about that, and it was such a pleasure to meet him. Next to Captain Spaulding, I'm sorry for the lighting here by the way, but this is the Jigsaw Killer from Saw. Besides the pig mask Jigsaw Killer, we also have Billy the Puppet in the background there. Another great Cult Classics release. Moving on from that, we have two Army of Darkness figures. Again, these guys didn't quite make the cut of my top 5 Evil Dead collectibles in my collection, but they are a pair of figures that I do absolutely love. Especially this Medieval Ash figure, which I think has a really great likeness to Bruce Campbell. for its age. And of course the Yes Smart Ash is an absolute classic. Finally, besides the Halloween figures, this is probably my favourite NECA Cult Classic figure, and it is Jason from Friday the 13th Part 7. This figure is signed by Kane Hodder, the iconic actor who has played Jason Voorhees a record 4 times, this being his first portrayal of the mass killer. And I believe this is the first NECA Cult Classics figure ever released, and it has aged very well. Now, just before we move on to the final wall and final part of my horror collection room, here is my NECA Toys collection of their original run of Nightmare on Elm Street figures. Starting up here, we have the Series 1 figures of Freddy Krueger from the original Nightmare on Elm Street, and I still believe that this is without a doubt the best 7-inch figure of Freddy Krueger we have ever seen. It's absolutely fantastic, and yes, I had to buy 2 because they are packaged slightly different, but you know, that's how much of a horror nerd I am. Here we have Freddy Krueger from A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2. As I said earlier, this is my favourite look of Freddy, and probably my favourite Freddy Krueger figure head sculpt we've ever seen. Next to him is Freddy from Dream Warriors Part 3. Another Part 3 figure here. Part 4, the Dream Master, which is an amazing little piece. I really love this. And now we have the Dream Child figures. This comic book Freddy in particular is definitely a standout figure from this Freddy collection. And last but not least, we have 2 figures from Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare. Power Glove Freddy and Freddy before, of course, he was hunted down by the parents of Springwood. And it's got great likeness to Robert Englund. Really impressed with this figure. And finally, Freddy Krueger from Wes Craven's A New Nightmare. I forgot to show you guys, but on this wall there's actually a lot of space dedicated to a window of which is always blacked out. I have no sun in this room, just LED lighting to stop any damage happening to action figures, because if the sun comes in the room, it's more than likely the action figures will go yellow over time, and that's something that I'm definitely not risking. Also on my windowsill we have this Evil Dead 2 Kandarian dagger replica by Trick or Treat Studios, another piece that I really love. And as I said before in a previous video, I probably have more Evil Dead items in this collection than anything else. I also forgot to mention that this is a reason why I'm very envious of people who have collection rooms in the basement. Very envious of that. Now as we come to the final wall in the collection room, we see again that the ceiling is lined with NECA retro cloth figures, starting with this They Live set. I talked about this one earlier as I was talking about the Frank and Narda figures. I absolutely love this set. Again, NECA killing it as usual. Next to that set we have a Dr. Decker from Nightbreed. Now this is probably one of NECA's more unusual releases, as this is definitely a cult film by the great Clive Barker. And Decker is such a well-designed character. I loved his anytime he was present in the film. He stole the show. Played by David Cronenberg, by the way, if you didn't know. And next to him we have Captain Blake from The Fog. John Carpenter's The Fog. Absolutely fantastic film and a brilliant figure release. Has light up eyes. And here we have another NECA box set, and it is Laurie Strode and Dr. Loomis from Halloween 2. And this is the first time we've gotten a Jamie Lee Curtis Laurie Strode figure from either the first and second Halloween film, at least in a proper action figure form. Still waiting for NECA to make figures from the original Halloween, however. Maybe a box set of Laurie Strode and Michael Myers in the future would be great. And of course, here is Donald Pleasance as Dr. Loomis. Absolutely stunning stuff from NECA. And of course, next to them has to be the man himself, Michael Myers, the Boogeyman. I absolutely love the sculpt on this figure. I think they got the mask perfect, and I love all the accessories he comes with, as usual. And finally, we have this incredible Snake Plissken figure from Escape from New York, iconically played by Kurt Russell. This is one of the earlier NECA retro cloth figures. Again, this came out in 2014. The likeness is fantastic, and again, the tailoring really sells it. Very rare figure, but another one of my favourites. Underneath those NECA figures, we have this stunning art print by Bottleneck Gallery of the original Friday the 13th poster. Just like the Halloween one, this also has a foil material on the knife. It's a great effect, and it just looks fantastic. Again, this is also signed by a lot of the cast of the original film of Who I Met at Weekend of Hell in Germany. We've got Ari Lehman, Robbie Morgan, Adrian King, Janine Taylor, Harry Manfredini, who I had a great conversation with about music and has composed music for many great films. Ron Milkey played Officer Dorff, and hopefully one day Kevin Bacon, but probably not. Next we have one of my favourite art pieces, and this was done by the great artist Gabs, and it is of one of my favourite movies of all time, An American Werewolf in London. This is such an absolutely stunning print. Just look at the work that has been put into this. Absolutely beautiful artwork. This was released by Vice Press last year. Very proud to own this. And it is signed by actor Michael Carter, who played Gerald Bringsley. He's the guy in The Subway, who of course famously gets killed by the werewolf on the escalator. And it's also signed by the werewolf himself, Mr. David Norton, and he wrote Beware the Moon. Now, as a centerpiece, I have this absolutely beautiful Jason Edmiston print from Child's Play. This, of course, is signed by Jason and was a limited edition of only 100. Jason's artwork is some of the best out there. Such an incredible artist and a really nice guy. And this is also special again because it is signed by Brad Dourif, the voice of Chucky. Now, coming to the end of this tour, I've got to say thank you again for everyone who has watched the entire thing and stuck with me through this. I hope you've enjoyed it. A lot of people asked to see this video, so I hope I showed everything pretty well. Obviously I had to rush through a lot of it. There's probably more stories I could tell about a lot of these items, and I will be doing more videos, like I said, on specific items. If there's anything that you guys want to see, please let me know. I will make a video about it. And here we have a photo from one of the greatest moments of my nerdy life, and it was from when I met Robert Englund in full Freddy makeup. Had to get this one framed. I have plenty of photo ops with all different people from many different conventions, but this is such a special one. I had to make sure I got this framed and put on the wall. And finally, we have this photo from when I met the master of horror himself, John Carpenter. This was such an incredible moment that I will never forget. So there we have it, guys. That is the end of the Horror Room collection tour. It's been great to finally get this filmed and finally upload this and show it to you guys. I've needed to do a collection update for quite a while, so it was great to finally get to it, and I've been excited to make this video for quite a while now, as I said at the start. I also want to say once again a big thank you to everyone who supports the channel and everyone who has managed to sit through this entire video. I'm not sure how long it's going to end up being, but I imagine I've probably talked for quite a long time, so I'm sorry about that. That said, I probably still left a lot of stuff out. I probably missed some things. I have a lot more to say about this collection as a whole. So if there's anything in particular that you guys would want me to talk about, anything you want to see in particular in this collection, please let me know and I'll make a video on it. Anyway, until next time, take care.